So, what if a single sentence, just one, could completely dissolve years of marriage? I mean, shatter the entire foundation of a family. What would that even sound like?
Well, that's what we're looking at today. We're exploring this idea of, the shadow of a first wife, specifically when a new marriage starts after a really tragic sudden death,
Right.
and it forces the living spouse to navigate. Well, it's not just memory, is it? It's an idealized version of a past life that never got messy.
Yeah, a life that was never allowed to get the rough edges of reality. The source material we have today is basically a roadmap of pain, and it all stems from this one public statement from a husband to his current wife, the mother of his two kids.
And the quote is it's a bombshell.
It really is. At a casual potluck, he says, if she walked through that front door right now, I'd pick up where we left off.
Oof. I mean, our mission here is to really analyze the emotional architecture of that. We have to look at the timeline of the loss, the exact context of, well, the betrayal
Right.
and the fallout.
Exactly. This isn't just about grief. It's about where you place your commitment, to a memory or to your actual living family.
Mm-hmm.
So before we get to that potluck incident, we really have to set the stage. We have to understand the depth of that first relationship, because this wasn't just some fling.
No, not at all. That's the critical starting point. They were high school sweethearts. I mean, they started dating their junior year,
So a long time.
a very long time. And they even survived the long-distance thing in college, which, as you know,
Yeah.
breaks up a lot of young couples.
Oh, for sure. So surviving that, it kind of signaled they were in it for the long haul, even back then.
Absolutely. And they got married right after college. They were both just 23.
Just kids, really.
Exactly. So their whole adult identity was forged together. It sets this precedent that his core self was built alongside her.
And that deep connection, that shared history, just makes the end of it so much more catastrophic.
Right. Because the first wife, she passes away unexpectedly
Yeah.
at age 26 from an aneurysm. So just 3 years of marriage. And it's cut short violently with no warning at all.
It's the speed and the youth of it all. They were still in that idealistic phase, probably, still making plans. They hadn't hit the decades-long grind that can really test a marriage.
And here's something really poignant from the source material. They never had children.
Ah.
And that absence it's a huge part of this idealized grief. That memory is free from all the stress and the compromise and, frankly, the friction that raising a family brings.
The relationship is it's perfectly preserved in amber. It's just pure young love, untouched by arguments over who's changing the diaper.
That's a great way to put it. The first wife, by tragic circumstance, becomes this impossible standard to live up to.
Yeah.
She never got the chance to disappoint him on a big parenting decision or, grow into a different person than the one he married at 23.
Yeah. She's flawless, frozen in time. Which means for the current wife, the one who is raising his two kids, she's competing against a ghost.
An unbeatable competitor.
So with all that trauma, how long did it take for him to even think about moving on? The sources say he was just completely devastated.
Well, the timeline suggests he was cautious. He met the narrator, his current wife, about 4 years after the death.
4 years, okay.
Yeah, so he wasn't, rushing into anything. He shows he was trying to mourn, to re-engage with life.
But deciding to re-engage is one thing. Deciding to fully commit again, that's another. They did get married. He was 34, she was 31, and then they had 2 kids.
And that is the immovable reality that makes his potluck comment so incredibly damaging. They didn't just move in together. They built a whole new foundation, a new family.
A family with 2 children who represent a life he never had with his first wife.
Precisely.
So when he says he'd pick up where he left off, he's not just dismissing his wife. He is implicitly erasing the existence of his entire current family.
It's like he's saying his current life, the wife, the children, the home, it's all just a waiting room.
Wow.
Yeah. That if the past could be brought back, the present would be instantly discarded.
Okay, so let's get to the catalyst. The potluck incident. This wasn't some private heart-to-heart conversation. This was a casual setting.
Total conversational whiplash. The scene is, super relaxed. It's a bunch of friends, and they're talking about relationships because one of them had just gotten divorced. Just standard friend stuff.
And the narrator, his current wife, she was actually being really positive, which makes it so much more painful. She was talking about her own bad luck with men before him, saying how lucky she felt to have found him.
She's publicly affirming their bond. She's offering this moment of genuine gratitude for the life they've built.
Right. And it's in response to that specific moment of her appreciation, her vulnerability, that her husband jumps in. He brings up his deceased wife, who everyone there knew about, of course.
Yeah.
And then he drops that line.
It's the difference between private grief and public betrayal. I mean, a lot of people carry love for a lost spouse. That's human.
Yeah.
But to make it a public declaration of preference right after your current wife says she loves you, that feels like something else entirely.
It feels like an act of emotional separation. It's
Right.
it's a violation of the marriage contract, isn't it? The
Yeah.
promise is that you choose me today and tomorrow over everyone else,
Yeah.
including ghosts.
Yes. By saying he'd pick up where we left off, he's confirming that this whole path he's on with her and their 2 kids, it's just a detour he'd abandon in a second.
And the sources say the social fallout was instant. Everyone got awkward. The vibe in the room just changed completely.
Oh, I'm sure. And the narrator's internal reaction. She describes it with this gut-wrenching force. She said it felt like someone put her heart into a blender and punched me in the gut.
That's physical. That's trauma, not just hurt feelings.
Absolutely. And yet, what's her first move?
She laughs it off to avoid making a scene.
Right. And we have to talk about that. She swallows this immense emotional blow, this invalidation of her whole life, to protect him from social awkwardness and to keep the party going.
Which just leads to the inevitable question that must have been screaming in her head, if you still feel that way. Why did you marry me? Why did you have children with me?
The question changes from being about his grief to being about his intent. And, she admits she has no experience with this kind of loss. She gets that it's a deep, specific kind of grief,
But she draws a line.
a very clear, necessary boundary. She says she would never say that in front of my new spouse.
It's about the performance of commitment. You can feel what you feel, but you cannot publicly prioritize the dead over the living family you chose to create. It makes her feel like a stand-in.
The silver medal relationship.
Yeah.
And that feeling is just toxic to trust. The source says the car ride home was completely silent. They barely spoke all night.
The communication just severed.
Instantly.
And the narrator, she really tries to handle it maturely. She tells him it hurt her deeply, but she postpones the big conversation until the morning. She says she needs space to avoid saying something mean.
Which is a very healthy de-escalation tactic. She's basically saying, I'm too wounded to talk right now. I need to process this without lashing out.
And this is where it gets even worse. The conflict moves from a verbal betrayal to a physical boundary violation.
It does. She tries to get that physical distance. She wants to sleep on the couch, just to have some space to process. But the source says the husband would not leave me alone.
He wouldn't give her the space she asked for.
That refusal is almost as damaging as the comment itself. Because it shows he can't or won't acknowledge the impact of his own actions. When you detonate a bomb in your relationship, the very first step is respecting your partner's need for safety.
So why do you think he did that? Was it just panic? Was he trying to fix it and making it worse?
It could be a lot of things, but psychologically, refusing that boundary can come from a place of panic, a deep, maybe unconscious fear that if he lets her pull away, she might just disappear. Just like the catastrophic loss he already went through.
So he's trying to physically force closeness to stop his own anxiety about being abandoned again.
It's possible.
Mm.
But the effect on her is that she's denied the ability to manage her own pain. She tried to prevent a destructive fight, and he actively sabotaged that, forcing her to flee their own bed to get the space she needed.
So she's not only been publicly invalidated, she's now been privately denied the space to even process that invalidation.
Exactly. The home itself becomes a conflict zone instead of a sanctuary.
And the story leaves us right there in this incredibly tense, suspended moment. It's the next morning. The wife has barely slept. And the husband, he's still asleep.
He is literally unconscious, sleeping through the disaster he created. And that contrast, her sleepless, anxious state versus his oblivion, it just highlights the unequal burden of the emotional fallout.
So, stepping back, what's the core takeaway here about a subsequent marriage after a tragedy like this?
I think the synthesis is that the husband showed his unresolved grief is still actively competing with his present commitment. The marriage might be real, the love might even be genuine. But that statement proves he hasn't done the psychological work of moving from a life that was paused to a life that has been truly restarted.
And that's the real pain here for anyone listening. This isn't about asking him to forget his first wife or to delete his memories. It's about demanding that he acknowledge his current life as primary, not temporary.
She's left wrestling with the idea that her marriage, her commitment, and their 2 children are all fundamentally expendable if the idealized past could somehow just walk back through the door.
It's an impossible, lifelong competition with perfection, a memory that never got a chance to fail or grow old. What an enormous burden to ask someone to carry.
A huge burden.
This has been a really difficult deep dive. Before we wrap up, we want to leave you with one final provocative thought, and it's focused on that immediate aftermath.
Yeah. So, considering that the wife needed space to process her pain and avoid a bigger fight, and the husband would not leave her alone, forcing her to sleep on the couch just to get that distance.
How does that inability, that refusal to grant an emotional boundary right after a shocking statement, how does that fundamentally sabotage the entire process of reconciliation and healing before it can even begin?
What is the real cost of refusing to let your partner breathe?
Something to think about. Thank you for joining the deep dive.